What's going on, fellas? This is Mike D, Mr. Double Down on You, with another episode of Black Fathers Now. Now, check this out, man. We're going to have a really awesome conversation with a brother who's making an impact in the area on the West Coast in San Diego. We got my man, Coach T, aka Tyrell Richard Sr., and he's a father of two. He's a co-author of a new book. We're going to jump into that. He's a youth football coach. Like I mentioned before, he's currently in the San Diego area, but he's originally from the Bay. Was an E40 said straight up from the Bay. Hey,
Yeah, area.
I love it. I love it. But what's interesting about it is our previous conversation really turned into like an impromptu, almost coaching session in which we identified a superpower that he has living inside of him that he really has not explored yet. And we'll dive into that a little bit as well. But fellas and ladies tuning in too, we have my man Tyrell Richards Sr., aka Coach T, in the building. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm happy to be here, man. I'm happy. The sun is shining. I'm feeling good, man. I'm looking good. What can I say, man? I'm happy to be here with you.
That's awesome, man. And what I'm happy for you to take time out of your schedule. And again, like I said, you're West Coast. We're recording this early. So brother had to get up a little early, didn't you?
Yeah, got up a little early. That's okay, though. That's all
But look
right.
here, man. I appreciate you feeling the fact that we're worth it, man. So thank you so much for sharing with us today, brother.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so before we jump into your story, before we jump into your journey, I like to do shout outs because who are we without those people that end up being the wind beneath our wings, right? What is it? The African proverb that states, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I might have the wording off of that a little bit, but the reality is we need to make sure that we highlight those around us that serve as the wind beneath our wings. Give some shout outs, brothers, before we jump into your story.
Hey, first and foremost, I got to give a shout out to the Lord and Savior. Without
Absolutely.
Him, there is no me.
Absolutely.
My mother and father, who've been through their things, but I believe did a good job in bringing me up and teaching me right and wrong. Of course, I got to shout out my lady who supports me, Robin, who supports me all along. Uh, you know, my kids, to keep me strong, keep me pushing. Uh, what can I say, man? These are the people that help me do what I do. And I don't want to forget my man, Daryl Thomas. He's helped me come along. He's helping me get my things together. He's coaching me up. So, going to shout out to that brother as well. So,
It's good stuff, man. And you mentioned obviously, your lady, your better half, your kids, your parents, and your coach, right? And it's interesting, we think about the concept of coaching. Every player that's Hall of Fame, anything, has a coach, right? Just about anybody who's making impact in the world in some capacity has a coach, meaning we can't always see everything through our own eyes. So that's why it's good at times to have another set of eyes there to see things and see around corners that maybe you're not aware of. So it's interesting, but it's also powerful that you threw that into the mix in regards to your shout out. So salutes to you, my man.
well, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, man. Appreciate
No
it.
doubt. And so you mentioned your support system, but now let's jump into your story, man. Let's go to your origin story, man. Talk to us a little bit about yourself growing up, some of your experiences growing up in the Bay, and some of those things that led to the man that you are today, brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I said, I was born in Oakland, California. First early part of my life, grew up in Oakland, and in the life of Oakland, it's kind of like, how do I say, your family, even though you're not family. You
Mm,
know, I remember when I was young and my parents first told me that, we were going to be leaving, we were going to
mm,
be moving from Oakland. Like, wow, I was maybe 8 years old, 10 years old. And that hit me hard. It's like, man, I don't want to leave, I don't want to leave. We lived on this small street and, we knew everybody on the block. And it was like, even though they weren't family by blood, it was family by neighborhood.
mm,
And to me, it was really, I don't even know the words to say it. It was like you're kind of taking me out of my home, you
mm,
know? And then again, I think, okay, maybe I'm just young and don't understand, but no, there's really something about uh, And everyone that's from the Bay Area can tell you this. There's really something about being from the Bay Area. Now, like I say, and not, like I said, you know, it was the first 8 or 10 years of my life. So I didn't completely grow up in the Bay Area. But when you think about the Bay Area and specifically Oakland, there really is a family about Oakland. You know what I mean? It's just where you grew up, how you feel. It's a different vibe, you know. It's a different vibe. So you know, Oakland, we moved out to Newark, California, suburbs, you know, different kind of scenario, a lot of different ethnic groups out there, you know, and all actually, you know, school system is a little bit better, you know, and you know, it was kind of shocking to me from going from being in Oakland where it was predominantly Black in my neighborhood to going to out in Newark where there's a multitude of ethnicities, you know. So that was kind of wow, you know, as a young guy, like, wow, this is different, you know. But I adapted, you know, like every kid does. Adapted, grew up, excuse me, grew up there, elementary school, junior high, high school, you know, and adapted well. Adapted well. I like Newark. I really have a heart for the Bay Area, no doubt. I'm in San Diego, California now. Don't get me wrong, I love San Diego, but there's something about the Bay Area. There's something about the origins of Oakland that resonate with you. You know, I can very well say that I'm from Newark, you know, but I feel, you know, the feeling is, you know, I was born and raised in Oakland, even though the majority of my time was in Newark. You know, it's just.
I want to throw something there, man. It's interesting. You, when you said that, it made me recollect back to a quote from, I think it's Maya Angelou, where she says, I don't always remember what you say or do, but you will always remember how people made you feel. Right? Like you don't always remember what people say or what they do, but you always will remember how they make you feel. And it's interesting how you mention, or you have such an affinity for Oakland, and it wasn't what someone said or what someone did. It was how Oakland made you feel. And that's interesting, because that to me is that, you know, when I think about that, I think about relationships, right? Because you don't feel things from entities or people that you don't have a relationship with. There was an intimate relationship with you in the city of Oakland, which gives you that feeling where you only spent 8 years there, but yet that's still home to you.
Exactly. You know, and as a kid growing up in Oakland, I remember we had this plum tree in the front yard.
Okay.
And as a kid, you know, my friends and I would climb up the tree and eat the plums, and you know, eventually have a stomach ache because we ate too many plums. But it was really home to me, you know, really home to me. And as a child, you know, we used to play, you know, football, you know, like every kid does. But where we lived, there was an area where there was grass in front of the house, and then there was a cement walkway, and then there was a driveway, and then there was the next house with cement driveway and grass. So, and you know, it was kind of like on a little hill. So we would play, you know, football on this little area up and down the street. You know, my house, the neighbor's house, the neighbor's house after that, neighbor's house after that, and it was just fun. It was like, man, this is life. This is what it really is, you know. And see, those things, right? Those things I'll never forget, because it made me feel like this is home outside. This is family outside of my blood family. You know what I mean? You look across the street, and I'm not going to call out any you know, any family's names, but there was the older family that been there longer than us, you know, 20 or 30 years. Now we're talking back in 1970-ish, you know what I'm saying? So a long time ago. You can name the different families that live there. On the corner, I'm not going to mention the names, but on the corner, there's another family. It's just like, it's really strange, because it felt like family and home, even though they weren't blood family, you know. And I think a lot of times now, there is not the same feeling of family and the same feeling of, you know, as an example, if I was screwing up in the neighborhood, it was okay for Miss Such and Such to whoop my butt.
Mm-hmm.
And she would tell mom or dad.
And they would do
And
the same thing.
exactly, So it was like it was this tight knit neighborhood. You weren't going to screw up much
Mm-hmm.
without mom or dad knowing. It was just the way it was.
Brother, that's the village.
You know,
That's the
man.
village. That's and it's interesting, and I love you really going in depth because it made me recollect to my growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just a couple of years younger than you, so I'm growing up in the 80s into the 90s. And what's interesting is we had that same feeling as well. It was just like you playing from yard to yard to yard, from this house to that house. It was just like this whole neighborhood was your front yard. Right.
Exactly.
All the neighbors looked out for you. You were playing in the street. Somebody's calling your mama. Hey, Mike and the boys are out in the street. Or if you're doing something wrong, before you get home, your mama done got the message. Like, I know what you were doing. You want to tell me, or do I need to, tell you what I already know? Like it was that village principle. And I think to your point, that's so interesting because again, this is Black fathers now. And Black meaning we have like an African lineage, right? There's something about us that's connected to the continent of Africa. And when you go back to the African principle of it takes a village to raise a child, or it takes a whole village. That's the thing. It takes a whole village to raise a child. It's like sometimes we buy more so into this idealism of individualist, just nuclear family of just me, my wife, and my kids. I do everything. We do everything. Forget everybody else. It's on us 100%. But historically speaking, from us culturally, it was designed to be that village where, and I think God works in ways that he knows that. And that's why he, inspired the concept of it takes a village to raise a child, because he knows that we're fallible, we're imperfect, but then we're also limited in our capacity. But if we have that whole village principle, if our yard might not be humongous, but if we got 20 yards in the neighborhood that the kids can play in,
exactly.
Right?
We got a football field.
That's it. And we got a full football field, right? Or if our attention may be limited due to work or whatever, but if we got 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 other parents up the street who got their eyes looking out the window while they washing dishes or something, paying attention to what's going on, we can relax a little bit and get what we need to get done because we know in our heart or in our mind that our kids are fine.
Right. As a kid, I can remember my mother sending me to the store to get eggs or milk. Now, mind you, I'm 8 years old, 10 years old. The store is a couple blocks away. I don't even believe that parents send their kids to the store to go get milk and eggs walking, that is. The teenagers and the older children maybe. But we was 8, 10 years old walking to the store. It was like there was no mom needed some milk or some eggs or some bread. Go to the store, here go some money, go to the store and get it. She knows it's gonna take you 15 minutes at most to get around the corner and come back. And it was really no big deal. It was really no big deal. So I think today we miss that type of and I'll just say it, family. We miss that type of thing. The simple things, the real simple things. It's interesting. And I can remember having a conversation with my mother, and we were talking about, my mother made a comment that, that rap music you guys listen to, it's no good, or, because it had profanity, and I understand that. I'm a parent now. I kind of think
you get it now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So the point I'm making is parents and their kids, they, growing up in different times, but one thing is the same. The thing is the same as parents have a different idea or a different concept of what a child should be listening to in their music and how it affects them. So now today, of course, there's rap music, and I'm like, man, why are you listening to that? Why, it doesn't, don't get me wrong, I like rap music. I like rap music, but I like R&B more. I like jazz more. I think maybe my, music has developed, but it's interesting. I had the conversation with my mother. I had the conversation with my kids. So, and I would assume that my parents probably had it with their parents.
Absolutely.
So it kind of goes in generations, maybe,
But check this out, man. So when you're saying that, it's you as a person who's experienced a little bit of life has more insight into the impact of some of the things that someone who maybe has not lived as much life, they don't have that level of perspective, right? And so as you think about it, I mean, it's the same thing from, you know, when having a mentor who's been around the block a little bit, who's been around a few of these turns, can see like, hey, Mike, this is what's coming, just so that you know, here's a way to prepare for that, because this is what I dealt with, right? Even, and I might, you know, be going full speed ahead, not thinking about it, because I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And so I think, to your point, generationally, that's important. But then on the flip side, each generation also doesn't listen too well, because we go through this. It's like it's this cycle that continuously, you know, it keeps going back and forth.
I raised my hand. I
Me
didn't
too.
listen all the time, you know.
My feet, my toes, everything, man, because I didn't listen, you know. But then now, as a parent, I see it and I'm like, ooh, the impact of these influences. And speaking of influences, I know during our last conversation, you talked about how, you know, you ended up going to, as you became an older teenager into like a young adulthood, you know, things happened, but you ended up getting a chance to spend more time with your father, and how those moments really left a lasting impression on you. And that kind of led to this undiscovered superpower that's been laying dormant inside of you. Talk to us a little bit about the experience of those last few years with your father, and then what that now has kind of inspired you to do.
Right. Yeah. So I think I was roughly 20 years old. Yeah, 20 years or so. I went to live with my dad. He lived in Reno, Nevada. You know, needless to say, I was screwing up in the Bay Area. You know, and I called him up one day. You know, and here's one thing I want to say this, and I want to make this real clear. It's important. This is important. So my parents, you know, divorced. Okay, so for the most part, I live with my mom. But never once did my mom ever speak bad about my dad. So that's important to know. And I say that because I never had ill feelings for my dad. I just knew he wasn't in the house. So when I got ready, I screwed up, you know, when I was 20 years old, screwing up, I gave him a call. Hey, Dad, you know, can I come stay with you? You know, and of course, Dad being Dad, he read me the riot act. He's like, hey, you can't come up here screwing up. You can't do this. You can't do that. The same thing that you're doing down there is up here. Don't think you're running from the neighborhoods. And so I'm like, wow. So I had to hear all that. Like, Dad, that's not it. I'm coming up there to get myself right. I'm screwed up. I'm going back to school. I'm gonna do this stuff. I had a plan. I had a vision, you know, and I was focused. You know, I made up my mind. Okay, I need to get my stuff together. Needless to say, went to live with Dad, and I discovered that my dad and I had a really good relationship. I discovered that we were almost the same person. I discovered that I was so much like him. And I discovered that, man, this guy has a wealth of knowledge. It's like, he's like a walking encyclopedia to me. And although I was young and I was kind of half listening and kind of half not, I really was listening. So when it appears that, you know, I'm you know, and I can imagine, I'm sitting there like, Dad's giving me this lecture. Gotta listen till he's quiet, and then I go on about my business. But I was listening. So my dad and I got really close. We got really tight. And a couple of things that really stood out for me. He was like, you know, come on in here, boy. Let me show you how to cook. I'm like, I know how to cook. Nah, get in here. I'm gonna show you how to cook. So my idea was cooking. I made hamburgers and hot dogs. Right? I can cook. That was my idea. No. We're gonna teach you how to make spaghetti. We're gonna teach you how to make these nice salads. We're gonna teach you how to make steak. We're gonna teach you how to make breakfast. You like to eat, right? Well, you need to know how to cook, right? I'm like, okay. So I learned to cook really well with him. And then he told me a story about his parents. His parents that really resonated with me, and it made sense. It hit me like, wow, that's deep. So he told me the story about his dad and his stepmother, but he said that his dad only knew how to cook grits and eggs. The wife did all the cooking. So they, you know, had a misunderstanding. She decided she wasn't going to cook. So My dad tells me that his dad ate grits and eggs for 2 weeks because he couldn't cook.
Couldn't cook
Now,
anything else.
now I don't know. Maybe he's making a point about cooking. Maybe that wasn't the complete truth. I don't know, but it hit me as well. I don't want to eat grits and eggs for 2 weeks.
There
I
you
need to
go.
learn how to cook,
There
and
you
I
go.
like to eat. So it made a point. It drove home a point for me. It drove home a point for me. So I discovered living with my dad that we were really, really tight, and over the years, I think he kind of caught on to that also. I think, well, I can't say I think, I know my dad and I had a tighter relationship than any of the others, any of my siblings. Here's one thing that living with my dad, I decided when I was younger that I'm going to get me a leather lazy boy chair, just like the one my dad has when I get my place. Because we both like watching football. Sunday mornings when we get up, whoever got up first got to the lazy boy chair, had the lazy boy chair for football. That was our thing. Sunday we was watching football, talking, and doing what we do. So that was kind of our bonding time.
Okay.
I went to live with my dad. I kind of came into my own, started lifting weights, getting all buff and strong, and feeling real good. Went back to school, man, studying electronics. Girlfriend or three, really coming into my own. And my dad is watching me develop, and it's like, man, it was like this. I don't even know how to explain it. I felt good about myself. My dad felt good about what's going on because I was screwing up before. I'm there. I told him what I was going to do, and now I'm doing it. Right? So I'm going to school every day. One of the instructors at the school offered me a job at the school. I came home to him and said, "Hey, Dad, the instructor such and such asked me that I want to, work part-time." He said, "What'd you say?" I said, "Of course I want to work part-time." So now I'm going to school. I'm lifting weights, looking good, feeling good about myself. I got me a part-time job. My dad has let me drive his car, so it's like things are great. So I'm feeling good. My dad is feeling good. And we have this relationship that is just it's great. I was a young guy coming into my own, and my dad was pouring into me. He was giving me knowledge. He was telling me things that was going to happen. And although I pretended that I wasn't listening, or I
paying attention.
didn't, I was paying attention. I was paying attention. So now as an adult and have my own kids, I'm like, wow, Dad knew what he was talking about. Knew what he was talking about. And it's the same with my kids. When I talk to them, they're on their phone or whatever, hey, put that doggone phone down, listen, right? So I'm thinking they are listening, although it may appear to me that they're not listening.
That's right. But just keep going.
Yeah.
And I know, like in our last conversation, you mentioned that you were getting all of this good stuff. Like it was like you were coming into your own, but then you ended up losing him.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, man.
Yeah. So lifting weights, I actually won a weightlifting competition for the apartment complex. It was a pretty big apartment. That was a major achievement for me because, I won this contest, and then I'm feeling so good about myself. I got to talk to a couple of my buddies in the Bay Area. One particular friend had been in the Navy, right? So he got to telling me he was on battleship such and such. I was like, wow, Navy traveling. That might be kind of cool, So I'm feeling good about it. So I enlisted in the Navy, right? End up going to the Navy, ended up being on a battleship, just like my friend was. And in 1991, I got a message from the chaplain on board, and he came to me and he says, "Hey, your father has he's in the hospital." I'm like, wow, what's wrong with that? He had a stroke. I'm like, well, hey, look, I need to get home. I need to go see Dad. I need to get out of here. So my command at the time says, no, we can't let you go. It's just not able to be done. Now I got mixed feelings about that. No, let me just say it. I got ill feelings about that.
Absolutely.
Because at that time I was on a battleship, and we had helos that go on and off the ship, regularly. So if this had been a captain or an XO, they'd have got them off the ship to get to their parents. So I'm, that's
That's real though. That's a very real, and it's okay to share, your feelings about that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So And then maybe a week later, the chaplain comes back to me again and says, you know what? Well, let me back up. So they tell me that they can't get me off the ship right now, but once we hit Hawaii I think we want to hit Hawaii like in 2 weeks, something like that. Once we get to Hawaii, we'll get you home. I'm like, nah, that's not good enough. I need to go, right? So about a week later, the chaplain comes to me again and says, hey, you know, your dad had another stroke. Your dad is passed. I'm like, oh man. So of course I'm feeling, you know, some kind of way. I'm mad at everyone on the ship.
Absolutely.
You know, I should have been home. So I get to Hawaii. I get, make it back home. You know, they made arrangements for me to fly back home. I get there, and I like to think of myself as being, strong. Got my stuff together. But when I saw my dad laying there in the casket for the viewing, I was like, you know, I cried. I cried like a kid. Like, man, I wasn't here. I wasn't here. So, needless to say, um, that was a rough time for me. Let's just put it like that. That was a rough time for me. I felt like a part of me had died with my dad. I felt like there was so much more, so much more I had to learn. There was so much more we were to experience. My dad never got a chance to meet my kids. I didn't have the opportunity to, bring my kids to his house or dad come to my house. I just feel there's just so much more that he would have taught me. Even though I'm a young man and I'm doing my thing, I feel like there is just so much more. That I feel like there's a missing piece. There's something missing. You know what I mean? There's something missing because there's something missing because my dad, in my opinion, he was a great man. I really don't care what others have to say, good or bad. I know to me, he was a father to me. He looked out for me. He taught me things that I probably wouldn't have learned. Well, maybe I would have learned, but my dad, I'm going to teach you this, whether you want to know it or not. I'm going to prepare you for what's about to happen, And I felt like even though he died in 1991, what could he have taught me in 2001 or 2011 or 2021? You know what I mean?
Man, look, and I think this is interesting because this is what we briefly spoke about in our last conversation. And one of the things that we have to work on in regards to life is like we can be sad, we can be upset, we can be frustrated, we can be pissed off. That's okay. Those are emotions that we're supposed to have. They're there for a reason, right? Because we have these different things in our life. But we're also people, and like you mentioned, you're a man of faith as well. Nothing happens by accident. Everything happens for a reason. And we've also been given everything that we need to move forward. And so when our conversation happened last time, one of the things that I shared with you was he didn't leave you too early. He basically wrote the intro to the book that you're supposed to write. He gave you that jump start. He, in essence, was the prompt for everything that you're supposed to do. And you're one that's capable of taking all of these stories, if you go deep enough to find these things that are there, these concepts, these principles that helped you, you can now take them, reimagine them, and release them to the world, or help somebody. Or we call you Coach T because you're into mentoring and coaching young men. And you said that you are just like your father, or you saw your father in you. And what's so interesting, I would bet that's not a mistake, in a sense that you probably are a splitting image of a lot of what you would remember about your father. And those things are now getting poured into this next generation that you're coaching, mentoring, that, when you poured yourself out in a chapter of this book that you're a co-author on, all of that, those things were remnants of your father.
Right. It's interesting. One time, I posted a picture on social media, and I had let my beard come in a little bit, and it's a little fuller, and it was gray. And my sister and my nephew
Mm-hmm.
both said, my nephew was like, man, you look just like Richard. They called him Richard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look just like Richard. I'm looking at him, I'm looking at him, like, I don't see it. Okay, but I'm looking at the gram, like, okay, I can see it. I can see how he had his and mine. So it was like, wow, and thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? I do have a lot of his ways, and it's just, I don't know, it's remarkable to me. It's just, like you said, maybe this is the intro to the next story, but man, for me in my heart, I feel, it's a void, it's something's missing there. I mean, we can't sit and watch football, I mean, here's just a little tidbit. My dad was really into he liked, R&B music, and he had his stereo, right? Now, he wouldn't go buy a new stereo. He had the money to buy a new stereo. He liked his stereo, his cassettes, and you can tell him, I'm like, Dad, we can go get something new, something, now. He's like, leave my stereo alone. Listen, I'm gonna play my music on my stereo, what I want it. And you know what I mean? And when I think about it, like, as I'm older now, I get it. I mean, I have a stereo that's dated, but I'm not gonna go and run and get the latest thing. Some of the stuff now, in all honesty, I can't even, operate all the electronics now. So maybe I'm telling my age right now. You know what I mean? So, but I get it. As I'm older and as I'm maturing, I'm noticing things in myself that was just like my dad.
Oh, that's that. As you age, you notice things in yourself that are just like your dad. And you mentioned before how there was an image that you posted that your siblings and other family members said you reminded them of your father. You didn't see it. And I want to throw something out here. You don't have to see it when you are it.
Wow.
You don't have to see it if you are it. It's so interesting. Unless you're looking at a mirror, do you ever see yourself?
No.
You see what I'm saying? It's like you look out from yourself. Others see this thing, but you don't see yourself. You see outward, right? You see the things that you encounter. And so you don't have to see it when you are it, right? And so to that point, that's just it's just like every so often we have to dig into these things and really search, because a lot of times we feel like there's a void, but that thing is sitting right here with us. And you might not see it because you are it.
Wow, that's deep, man. I never looked at it from that point. I never looked at it from that perspective. But that's deep. Now you got me thinking. Man, that's interesting, man. Because as I was coming up again, I keep going back to this because my dad would, and I call it lecture, but he was giving me his ideas, his knowledge, and I'm kind of like, youngster.
What do you do to this day?
Yeah, you know what I mean? And, it's the same thing, I'm trying to give my kids all the information I have, all the knowledge that I have, all the wisdom that I've gained over the years. You
are it.
Yeah. It appears to me that my kids are listening, but they are. It's just young people. People. This is how we act as young people. But as an adult, I gotta give you what I know. I have to pour into you. I have to. I won't feel right unless I give you the understanding and the knowledge that I've gained over my 50 years or whatever. You know what I mean? I have to give it to you. Man. I'm not going to feel comfortable if I don't share what I know.
Man, you are it. Like anytime that you feel that there's a void there, you probably need to keep a mirror somewhere close to you and realize that you are it. Like the void that you feel at times, dude, that void, that it's really not a void, because you are it. That thing is full. It's full of so much. Like we could probably sit here and talk for hours. Man. About all the lessons and the things that, and if you really go deep, it could probably go on for days about the lessons learned, the things you were inspired by, the stuff that you picked up on, the things that were told to you, the things that you had to infer from just observing, but probably could go on for days. You are it. And that being said, it's funny. A lot of these things come out in ways that we've never even thought about, right? And when I mentioned coming out in communication and putting things out there, you are co-author of a book on fatherhood, right?
Yes,
so talk to me a little bit about the book, this project, how it came together, but then a little bit about what it is you contributed to this particular project.
Right. Yeah. So the book is called When the Walls Speak. It is a collaboration of fathers with one collective goal, and that is to uplift, motivate, and inspire the youth of today. That's the goal in it. And what we've done is we had taken different fathers and taken their experiences and their upbringings, maybe as a father or as a child, and we poured it into this book. And the thought process is to inspire a youngster, inspire the youth to know and understand that they are essential. And no matter where they come from, their backgrounds, hardships, that they too can be successful. They can succeed in life. So this book is designed to help a young person get through whatever it is they're getting through. This is like a movement. I'm talking to you today about the book. So the hope is that, I can talk to someone else. Maybe you will talk to someone. And these 13 men that have decided, you know what, let's collaborate. Let's talk about our experiences. Let's help the next generation get to where they need to be, because as a youth football coach, I see kids coming to the football field and I see them that, they're a little distracted or they're a little, standoffish. And I know, listen to what I'm saying, Mike. I know that some of these kids' homes lives are not the greatest. Now, I've had to pick up kids and drop off kids, from practice to practice, whatever. And sometimes you can see this kid is having a rough time, But I also noticed that those couple hours on the football field helps a kid come out of whatever it is, even if it's for only those 2 hours. Even if it's for those only 2 hours or however long it is, it helps. And I also know, as a parent and as a child, if your parent says something to you that you may believe or may not believe, as a child, you may take it in or may not. But the exact same message can come from a coach, an uncle, a teacher, and it resonate different with that child. I've heard it. I've seen it with my own kids. I've heard it and seen it with my own kids. I will tell them, and I'm not going to get into any details. I will tell them, look, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Oh, yeah. Okay, Dad. Right. But then a friend of mine will say something very similar, almost identical. And here goes this ongoing conversation back and forth between my son and a friend of mine. I'm like, what the heck?
Like, I said the same thing and it didn't resonate.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So,
Hold on. Pause for a second there. I'm going to throw something, because this goes back to what you said earlier in the story, right? We talked about growing up in Oakland. What was that thing that you felt growing up in Oakland?
It was family, man. It was the
village.
Family.
That village.
Yeah.
That village. And the design of the village, and you see how this thing comes together. The design of the village is, I think God knows that mama and daddy can't do everything. They know that teenage so-and-so or 10-year-old so-and-so might not listen to mom and dad, but they might listen to uncle so-and-so or coach whoever or neighbor that they look up to saying the same thing. And so I don't really care where the message comes from if it's the right message, right? And so, and it's interesting you say that, how this thing comes full circle, how I might say it, they don't listen to me, but let the neighbor say it. Let the coach say it. Let somebody they look up to say it. And it's like the best thing since sliced bread.
Right. It reminds me, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I want to say this. So I remember one of the parents of, one of the kids I was coaching 2 years ago. She came to me before practice. She was like, hey, little such and such, is not been doing his work, and he's kind of acting up at school. Would you mind having a word with him?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So absolutely, no problem. So I had the whole, the whole football team sitting there, had him take a knee, and I didn't point him out directly, but I said, "Hey guys, we're student athletes out here in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Student is first. You must maintain your grades. You must give your best effort, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm saying it, I made a point to make eye contact with him as I'm saying it. Now I'm scanning the whole crowd of students, but I'm making a point that I know that you haven't been doing your best. So he's looking at me with his eyes wide open, and he's, yeah, I understand, right? So needless to say, about near the ending of the season, the parent came back to me. She said, "Well, he's doing much better now. I'm not going to mention his name. He's doing much better now." So I don't know if it had anything to do with what I said to him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe did, maybe didn't. The point is he got back on track. And the point is I like to think that, maybe, coach being upset at his performance led to him like, well, man, I need to get it together. Or coach may not let me play my position. Or coach may not let me play as much as I normally would.
The village.
Yeah.
The village, brother. Like everything that you're saying, I just repeat the village. Like that's and fellas, I hope y'all are paying attention to the impact of the village. Like brother Coach T said that, his dad had a major impact, his mom had an impact, his coach has an impact on him, but he also talked about the value of the village, right? And even in the writing or the co-authoring of this book, When the Walls Speak, it's 13 men inspiring youth or inspiring young men or inspiring young folks that are coming of age to really look at life through different lenses or examples so that they can then approach or attack these issues that are going to come their way in a way that's constructive, right? But When the Walls Speak is in essence a collaboration of a village, right? And Coach T, brother Tyrell Richards, was author of a chapter of that. Don't tell us everything about it, but give us like a little snippet about your chapter in that particular book.
Yeah, so my chapter is real personal for me. It's real personal for me. So it kind of goes into some of the struggles I've had as a parent. Now, I'm pouring into this book from a parent's perspective, from a parent's perspective. And I'll just give you this little bit, right? So I start off in the chapter that says, "Have you ever experienced a pain that hurts so deep that you wonder, why is this happening to me? Have you ever experienced agony so deep yet it is not a physical pain? Have you ever had pain so deep that you question, is life really worth living?" And then I go on to say that this is my story about the two greatest people in my life, and those people are my kids. I apologize, Charles and Tanisha. I apologize for not being the father you needed me to be when you were hurting, for not being the father to come to your rescue when you needed to be rescued. I apologize for not being there to thwart the wrongdoing you would receive over your years. I apologize, and please forgive me. So I kind of poured into that because over the last 16 17 years we've had it rough, as a parent and children. Like I said, we were divorced, and divorce wasn't a good divorce. So I kind of go into that, give you some details about what happens there, and that's going to be I'm going to write the book. This is just a chapter. I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, brother, when you read this book, you're gonna be like, wow, really? It's going to be those aha moments. But the book, When the Wall Speaks, 13 great men pouring into this book, giving their experiences as fathers or as children. The thought process here is to uplift and motivate, inspire the next generation. It is to have a child read this book and say, wow, this happened to Coach T, and I'm going through this. Man, I can make it. Man, Coach T's children had it rough. I'm having it rough. I can make it. I can do it. The other authors, there's another author that his dad died. Not only did his dad die, his dad died in his arms. Man, went through a relationship thing, and ultimately his dad was murdered, but before he died, he was able to hold his dad in his arms. Man, that's deep. There's another part in the chapter where the author is giving some statistics. He said back in 2019 there was 15.7 million single mother households, in some report, and mother households, and 3 point something million single parent father households. So just those numbers alone, now don't quote me on the exact number,
I
but
got you.
just those numbers alone makes you think, man, all of these single family households, there's a problem there. There's something wrong there. There was another chapter where the author is talking about his parents splitting up, and for him to be the very best that he can be, the parents determined that it would be best for him to live with his father, you know.
Ooh, okay.
And then he goes on to say that living with his father has shaped him to be the father and the parent and the man he is today. And that's so deep, man. That is deep.
Check this out. And it's interesting because it sounds like you could have wrote that chapter too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reading this and I'm like, man, this sounds
me.
like me too. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. And again, the book is titled When the Walls Speak. And one of the co-authors is Coach T, aka Tyrell Richards Sr. Is the book currently available?
It's available. You can get the book from me. If you purchase from me, I will autograph it atcrichard@yahoo.com.
Okay.
CRICHARDSR@yahoo.com.
Okay.
It's a really good book. You guys can't go wrong. Once you read it, you'll be like, man, there's a lot of gems in this book. There's a lot of knowledge in here. Like I said, 13 fathers, 13 great men pouring into this book. There's a lot of different insights from different places. There's another one of the other authors grew up in a single family home with his mother. He was the oldest of the children, and he goes on to say that he was placed in positions of looking after his younger siblings. So he had to grow up faster than really was needed. And
hold on, don't tell the whole book now. Like this is
I'm giving a little bit.
That's a good snippet, because we want people to grab the book. And again, it's When the Walls Speak. And again, one of the co-authors is Tyrell Richards Sr. He's from the Bay Area, currently living in San Diego. And if you want an autographed copy of it, make sure to email him at crichardssr@yahoo.com. And I'll put that in the show notes. So if you want an autographed copy, you can get directly from him, email him. He'll work out the details with you there. Is there any other way for people to learn more about you, learn more about the book, any websites, anything?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, Facebook /Tyrell Richards Sr.
Okay.
My name, TyrellRichardsR. And I also have a Twitter page.
Okay.
So, Twitter. I do YouTube videos as well. So yeah, man, you know what? I have a real calling. I've been telling my lady for years. I'm like, you know what? There's something bigger for me. There's something more for me. I like coaching, but there's something more. There's something with this youth that I need to do. So what I'm doing now is I'm writing a book. I'm currently working on 2 more books. I do the YouTube videos to inspire youth. Look at my one videos. You'll definitely be inspired. I try to pour into them. I think there is a void, and I don't want to knock our school systems, but I think there's a void. Whereas, for the most part, students do well, but then what about that 2, 3, 4% that struggles? What about them? Do they just get left to the side? So I'm trying to reach all students, and I'm trying to reach students that feel like hey, what am I here for? The ones that feel left behind.
You want to inspire those that feel like this isn't for them, and give them a different angle, a different perspective, and also ultimately a different outlook, which can lead to different outcomes. And that's what this thing is all about. Different outlooks can lead to different outcomes. And in a lot of instances, we need some different outcomes. So,
Exactly.
brother, I salute you, man. And I'll make sure to have your information in the show notes. So if you all want to grab a copy of the book directly from him, you email him Richards Senior at yahoo.com. You can follow him on Facebook. I have a link to his Facebook page in the show notes, Tyrell Richards Senior, and the same thing on Twitter. Link up with him, connect with him, grab the book, When the Walls Speak. And man, literally check this brother out, man, because he's going to do some amazing things. He's already doing some amazing things, but he's going to ramp this thing up, because when he looks in the mirror, he sees the man that he felt left a void, but the reality is fully embodied in who he is and what he does day in and day out. And that's his father. All right. Well, brother, I appreciate you, man, for taking time to spend some moments with us here on Black Fathers Now. And, just thank you and continue doing the great work, brother.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate you having me, man. I'm blessed. You're blessed.
Yes.
Things are going to get better. We are going to uplift this next generation, and we going to get things fired up, man. Life is good. We are blessed. Love you, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
No doubt.
I'm looking to be on the show again in the future, man. I hope we can continue this relationship, and things will get better as things move on.
Absolutely, man. Well, love you too, man. I appreciate you, and definitely we'll have to do a round 2 at some point in the future when you drop in one of these other books. All right.
All right, my man. Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me, brother. Peace out,
fellas. No problem, my man. Fellas, ladies listening to, as always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on all social media platforms. Subscribe to the podcast via your favorite podcast listening app. Share this thing out. Make sure to get in contact with Tyrell Richards Senior. Grab a copy of the book, When the Walls Speak. Look for more stuff coming from the brother. If you're in the San Diego area, you're in a youth football arena, you've probably heard of Coach T. If so, run by, let him know that you heard about him more, or learn more about his story on Black Fathers Now. And until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.
All right.